Today is going to be something a little different, and recently I've been asking you guys to rank drivers based on how they're performing relative to their cars in 2023 to get a first little bit of power rankings going on this channel. Some of these results may shock you just a little bit, and if you guys want to vote on the next poll, you guys can go check it out, links in the description, where I'll probably try to upgrade these power rankings every 4 to 5 races or so, just so we can get a real cool power ranking by the end of the season. So how this works, I got you guys to vote in a poll where you literally could select all 20 drivers if you wanted, and it ranks from 1 to 20, so obviously the driver with the most votes will be number 1 on the power rankings, or with the least votes will be number 20 in the power rankings. Some of these results may shock you. Once again, this is all you guys voting. This is what you guys think how drivers have been performing compared to their relative machinery. And with that being said, hit that like button, subscribe with your friends, join the Discord, links in the description. We always welcome new members on the Discord. Plus, we also have some community leagues that you guys would love to join. With that being said, enjoy the video. Today's video is sponsored by my favorite reoccurring Formula 1 partner, Formula Neon. Formula Neon is having a huge clearance sale right now on their website. 50% off on NeoTrack, everything in their stock they want to go. From April 27th to May 7th, you guys can check out any Formula Neon on the website for 50% off. Get ready, it's pretty epic. Formula Neon, you love to see it. I got one, a lot of other Formula 1 creators got one. Formula Neon is awesome, and once again, one of my favorite reoccurring partners on the website. Grab your Neon track at half price with speedy 3 to 5 day delivery. And with that being said, guys, once again, go check out Formula Neon. Go check my link in the description down below to get your Formula Neon 50% off. With that being said, thank you Formula Neon for sponsoring today's video. Starting off, number 20 in this list is the smoothest of all operators, Carlos Sainz. To my surprise, you guys voted him dead last with like 1% of the votes, and he's in P20. I asked around all 23,000 of you guys to vote. A lot of you guys did vote, so thank you guys for checking that out. I know it kind of came out of nowhere, but once again, link will be in the description to vote. Currently sitting P5 in the driver standings with 34 points. I don't believe he's warranted a P20 on this list, but hey, that's what you guys have thought compared to his relative machinery. So the smoothest of operators, Carlos Sainz, in the first ever power rankings on this channel, is in dead last. From a Spaniard to a Frenchman, Esteban Ocon lands in the P19 spot on this list. Once again, quite surprising as well. He got like 1% of the votes as well. I think he got one more vote than Carlos Sainz here. Ocon has had a troubling start to the season, to say the least, especially in that Alpine, which should be performing a lot better than it has. I know they did have the double DNF in Australia, which was hilarious, by the way. But Esteban Ocon, 4 points, tied with his teammate Pierre Gasly. Hasn't been that good this year. Yeah, qualifying's been okay, race pace has been okay, but the finishes have not been good. The best thing Ocon has done so far this season is avoid photographers in the pit lane in Baku, and that's why he's 19th on this list. Moving on from France, we head to Australia, where we get another McLaren Australian Formula 1 driver in 2 years, and it is Oscarpiastri. He's had a pretty solid start to the year so far. He's got like 2% of the votes. He's got one more than Ocon, and then 2 more than Carlos Sainz. Kind of funny how that worked there. But Oscarpiastri, he's currently sitting P11 in the standings. There's a lot of drivers at 4 points. He's tied with Bottas, Ocon, and Gasly with 4 points, but he's 11th, highest out of all the 4-point finishers. Once again, it is his rookie season, so he's performing pretty well so far. Currently P18 in the power rankings, according to you guys, and I'm sure this has to be because the McLaren was an absolute dog to start the year, and it's very hard to drive a car like that when you're a rookie, and we've also seen it from Daniel Ricciardo. The car's hard to drive. I expect Piastri to raise on this list as the season goes on, as the McLaren gets better, but right now, he's P18. In P17, honestly, not a big surprise to me, considering how bad he's been performing this year. It's Kevin Magnuson, currently sitting at 1 point and P18 in the standings when his teammates got 6 points and he's in P10. We saw Kevin Magnuson perform very well last year compared to Mick Schumacher, and this year he's not performing as well compared to Nico Hulkenberg. I don't know how Mick Schumacher would have fared to Nico Hulkenberg, but Kevin Magnuson is not performing very well so far in 2023. Yes, I know the Haas is an absolute dog of a car, but I think P17 is warranted for Kevin Magnuson. Now going from Denmark, we go back to the French, and it is Pierre Gasly. Similar fate to Esteban Ocon, quite unlucky this year, but he also has made some very, very dumb mistakes, just like he did in Australia, where we literally took out his teammate. Pierre Gasly has 2% of the votes as well, pretty much one or two more votes ahead of Kevin Magnuson, and Gasly has not performed well. He is ahead of his teammate Esteban Ocon, just hardly. They're both tied with 4 points, but Gasly does have a higher non-point scoring finish, or a higher point scoring finish, which puts him ahead of Esteban Ocon. I think that Alpine car is too good to be sitting at 8 points combined and 4 points for each driver. So as the season goes on, I expect Gasly to move up in the rankings, but right now he sits in P16 and he's really got to perform better. Quite an underrated pick here, and I think Yuki Tsunoda should be higher than P15. He also has 2 to 3% of the total votes here. As you can tell, not a lot of people have voted for these bottom guys in the order. But Yuki Tsunoda has performed quite well compared to his machinery, and definitely quite well to his teammate. The points still represent how good Yuki Tsunoda has been this year, as he's finished P10 and P11 in every single race so far. He's got 2 points. He's been very consistent, and that's what we wanted to see from Yuki Tsunoda. I expect him once again to be higher on this list as the season ends, maybe even in the top 10 if he keeps performing like this. But right now, Yuki Tsunoda sitting on 2 points, P15. I think it's criminally underrated, but that's what you guys think. You guys think he's 15th. Let me know what you guys believe in the comment section, even though you guys already voted for this. From Japan to Finland, this is a driver who I think should actually be dead last on this list, and it is Valtteri Bottas. Maybe besides Nick DeVries, who we haven't seen come up yet. But Bottas has been absolutely terrible in that Alfa Romeo, besides in the first race of the season in Bahrain, where we scored 4 points. Bottas has been bad compared to Joe. He's been bad in the races, bad in qualifying. I can't believe this. Like, he was a guy who would challenge Lewis Hamilton on his day, and now he's losing to Zhou Guanyu in pretty much every session so far besides Bahrain, which is crazy because Bottas is once again a very highly rated driver. Maybe not anymore, but he's still, like, Zhou Guanyu is not a highly rated driver. He didn't win F3, he didn't win F2, he came second, like, I believe in one of them, but still not up there. Bottas needs to be performing better. I think you guys really hyped up Bottas way too much in this ranking. I think he should be lower, but you guys have Bottas at P14, and I just can't agree with that. What I do agree on, though, is Zhou Guanyu being above Bottas. Take Bahrain out of the picture for Bottas. He scores no points so far in this season and is basically outperformed by Zhou in every single qualifying and race. Zhou has been actually very good this year. While a lot of people don't agree that Zhou actually deserves a Formula 1 seat, I think he's done pretty well considering how he is beating Bottas right now, and I think Zhou does deserve to stay in Formula 1. Zhou has been pretty solid so far. He's got 2 points. He's sitting P16 in the driver standings, though like I said before, he has been performing better than Bottas. You take Bahrain out of the way and Zhou's ahead of him, and he's basically leading that Alfa Romeo team into the future. So good job, Zhou. I really like this, and once again, I think Zhou's actually rated quite perfectly here. P12, criminally underrated on this list considering he broke both of his wrists before coming into the season. You guys put Lance Stroll, and I really don't know why you guys have Lance Stroll in 12th. He's got 27 points this year. He drove, I know, yeah, sure, he's got like 10% of Aston Martin's points this year. But either way, Lance Stroll has been performing very well for a guy who had like 1 wrist going into Bahrain. He drove well in Australia. He drove well in Saudi Arabia. And yeah, he had a pretty solid performance in Baku last weekend. I think people just look at Lance Stroll and they're like, oh no, he still sucks. You know, he's getting dogged by Fernando Alonso. But you guys have to figure out, Fernando Alonso is an absolute god in a Formula 1 car. And especially in that Aston Martin, he's performing very well this year. Lance Stroll, a great midfield driver. I think he deserves to be in the top 10 of the power rankings for sure, especially considering he was driving quite injured. You guys have him in 12th. I think he should be higher. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. P11, probably your worst rankings of this entire power ranking. You guys have Nick DeVries, and he's easily been the worst driver. Basically the Nicholas Goat Tiffy replacement in 2023. 0 points. He's been bad. I don't think he's out-qualified Yuki Tsunoda. He hasn't outraced Yuki Tsunoda. He's crashed in basically every race. Like, I don't know what the heck he did in Baku. He just turned, hit a wall, broke his suspension. He's been bad, and there's a lot of people already calling for Liam Lawson to replace him mid-season at AlphaTauri. I don't think he will get replaced, and I'm happy that Nick DeVries got a chance at Formula 1, but man, he needs to step up because Yuki Tsunoda, I mean, he wasn't the highest rated coming into this year, and Yuki Tsunoda's absolutely dogging him right now. So Nick DeVries, you got to pick it up, dude. You can't be sitting dead last in that AlphaTauri. And once again, dude, just do better. Another driver who should be lower on this list, I don't know why you guys keep rating these guys so highly, it is Logan Sargent. He's done actually quite well for Williams, definitely been closer to Albon than Nicholas Latifi was in last year, even though Nicholas Latifi is the GOAT and did get a fastest first sector in Hungary. Logan Sargent also sitting at 0 points ahead of Nick DeVries, so he's actually performing better than Nick DeVries, and Nick DeVries is in AlphaTauri. I think AlphaTauri is probably the worst car this year in most circumstances, and yes, I know they're both rookies, but Nick DeVries has so much more experience experience than Logan Sargent in just a bunch of categories. He's won F2, he's won Formula E. Logan Sargent hasn't won Formula 2, he's never even raced in Formula E. So Nick DeVries should be higher than Logan Sargent. And yes, Logan Sargent is probably the most rookie out of all the rookies this year. But I think Logan Sargent's done pretty solid so far. Do I think he warrants P10? Probably not. Probably more in the 15 to 20 range. But either way, it's hard to tell with that Williams, as it is very good in a straight line, but in everything, basically everywhere else, it really sucks. In P9, we have Logan Sargent's teammate, Alexander Albon. And yes, he's got 1 point, and he absolutely bottled the race in Australia as he raced too hard, basically. But Alex Albon, P9, I think is quite a fair rating, as he's performed very well this year, but he does have a little bit of a mistake in him. P9, probably a little bit too high, but it also is pretty solid considering, once again, he has a point in the Williams. We don't see Nick DeVries having a point at AlphaTauri, and yes, I know he bottled Australia, but it's been a pretty good start to the season for Alex, and I think he will probably drop as the season goes on, but then again, maybe he'll do better, maybe he'll score more points, we'll have to see. Now we're getting to drivers in some of the big four teams here, and in P8 we have George Russell, currently sitting P7 in the standings, tied with Charles Leclerc with 28 points. I don't know how you're tied with Charles Leclerc, even though Leclerc's basically got points in one race this year. We don't really count Saudi Arabia. Lewis Hamilton is performing way better than George Russell this year. To be expected, by the way. I did not expect George Russell to challenge Lewis this year, even though he did last year, but then again, George Russell was very, very lucky last year. George Russell sitting P7 in the standings, like I said before. I think he should be performing better. I get it, the Mercedes race pace isn't the best out there, and it looks like George Russell does have the edge of Lewis in qualifying, but he's got to figure out that race pace. Lewis Hamilton has 48 points. George Russell's got 28. Lewis has 20 more points than George Russell in 4 races, and if Lewis tends to start the season slowly, so once the season goes on, I expect Lewis to pull away over George even more, and I think P8, very fair rating for George Russell so far. He's got 5% of the votes in this entire poll, and yeah, I think that's quite fair. George Russell's in P8. P7, to my surprise, you guys voted Nico Hulkenberg. And, you know, in Australia, if Carlos Sainz got that penalty and they actually didn't revert the race results to the lap previous before the last red flag there, Nico Hulkenberg would have been on the podium. And that would have been his first ever podium in Formula 1. He's currently sitting P10 with 6 points, and going into Baku, he was higher than Charles Leclerc in the driver standings, which is unbelievable for a Haas. So good job for Nico Hulkenberg. I think P7 is completely warranted for him so far, considering he hasn't been like a full-time Formula 1 driver since 2019. Now he's come back and he's absolutely destroying Kevin Magnuson, who destroyed Mick Schumacher, who basically kicked Mick Schumacher out of Haas. And Nico Hulkenberg, definitely worth getting rid of Mick Schumacher, and he's performed very well. He's definitely the best driver for Haas that they've had in a long time. 6th in the power rankings is another one I do not agree with at all, and you guys put Sergio Perez. I can't believe this. You guys put Perez with 5% of the votes. I can't believe that. I don't know how you guys managed to do that. He's only 6 points behind Max Verstappen in equal machinery. Granted, 2 of the 3 races, even honestly 3 out of the 4 races have been street tracks, because you can consider Australia a street track, and those are Perez's best tracks. But Perez has done very well this year, and he's actually taking the fight to Verstappen. Once we get to more traditional tracks, I think he'll fade away, but then again, he's been proving me wrong these last 2 years, and he's making my preseason predictions look very, very bad. He's sitting with 87 points. I mean, yes, he's in a Red Bull, obviously he should be at 87 points right now, but then again, Max Verstappen isn't pulling away, and I think Perez is doing a very good job this year. I don't think he'll win the driver standings, and I mean, he says he's going to challenge. He probably won't, and he might even fall back into the likes of Fernando Alonso or Charles Leclerc by the end of the season, but who knows, maybe he'll perform well, maybe we'll have a title decider. Either way, Perez has performed way better than 6th. 5th, I don't agree with this one as well. You guys have Lando Norris. He's sitting P9 with 10 points, but honestly, he's quite lucky that he even got there, as in Australia, he got most of his points, and he really shouldn't have been in the points anyway. Lando Norris, I mean, yes, I know he's got a lot of fangirls and fanboys out there, and he's P9 in the standings, kind of carrying McLaren, even though Piastri's like 6 points behind him, and he's a rookie. He's been better than Piastri in qualifying, better than Piastri in the races, as he should be. P5, I think, is a little too high for the power rankings. Let me know in the comments section what you guys think. In P4, sitting with 6% of the total votes, and sitting P4 in the driver standings. I think this is completely fair ranking. You guys have Lewis Hamilton, definitely outperforming his machinery so far in the races this year. And yes, he has been very lucky, like he normally is, besides last year for some reason. Yeah, Hamilton's been pretty good. 48 points, sitting P4 in the driver standings. Nothing to scoff at right there. Does not have the machinery to win a world title this year. I mean, I'm sure Toto Wolff will say he's on the 14th fastest car to 10 cars. But yeah, he's sitting P4 with that 14th fastest car. So good job, Lewis. I hate to say it, definitely my least favorite driver in Formula 1. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton sitting pretty P4, and I think he does deserve that P4 spot. P3, my favorite driver, Charles Leclerc. You guys voted for this. Remember, I didn't vote for this. He actually got quite a lot of votes. I mean, 1% more than Lewis. 7% of the total votes. I guess you guys can guess the top two. They got majority of the votes. Not really a surprise here. Once again, you guys can vote for the next power rankings in the comment section down below. I believe you can change your votes whenever you want. So as the races go on, go change the votes. Charles Leclerc sitting in P6 with 28 points. Driver standings do not actually describe how good Leclerc's season has been, minus the little incident that he had in Australia. He's putting that car in qualifying where it should not be. Qualified on pole in Baku, pole in the sprint race in Baku, qualified in terms of raw pace, P2 in Saudi Arabia. Sure, it would have been P3 if Verstappen got to Q3, but either way, that car was not a P3 car in Saudi Arabia. He was amazed. He would have got a podium in Bahrain if his car didn't break down, and I'm sure he probably would have done very well in Australia if he didn't get taken out in the first turn by Lance Stroll, even though it's definitely clearly a racing incident. I think more fault was actually on Leclerc for that one. Leclerc, P3 in the power rankings, and I think he might actually rise up as the season goes on. P2 is sitting with 20% of the entire votes, sitting P3 in the driver standings. You guys have Fernando Alonso, and I do not disagree at all. There's even an argument to put him at number 1, considering he's destroying Lance Stroll. Even though Lance Stroll basically has double the points of Lance Stroll, which is kind of crazy. Fernando Alonso, P3 with 60 points. He's 27 points behind Sergio Perez in P2, though he is in an Aston Martin, which is much slower than the Red Bull. Out of the 4 races, he's got 3 podiums. He's putting that car where it deserves to be, and I'm happy to see Fernando Alonso P2 on this list. Nothing really too much else to say. Basically a 42-year-old man driving a Formula 1 car at the top of the world. You love to see it. I love Fernando Alonso, but Max Verstappen is number 1. There's really no surprise to this. I believe he's gotten 28% of the total votes, which is a lot of you guys. And he's sitting P1 in the standings, 93 points. Like I said, there is an argument to putting Alonso first, as Verstappen has not won all 4 races so far. Perez has actually taken the fight to Max Verstappen, which is something we haven't seen Perez do, basically. Besides the street track, that's about it. Verstappen still leading the championship. Yes, and I know he started P like 15 or something in Saudi Arabia. Got up to P2, could not catch Perez. Started P2 in Baku. He got unlucky, could not catch up to Sergio Perez as well. So yes, there was a little bit of unluckiness there, but either way, he's still leading the driver standings, and I expect him to keep leading until he wins the championship this year. Because let's be honest, guys, he's gonna win the championship unless Fernando Alonso wins it, but that'll be epic. So there you guys have it. That is your power rankings for the first 4 races of the 2023 season. I'll probably do the next power rankings after this huge schedule comes around. We got like Miami, Monaco, Imola, Canada, and all those tracks. I'll probably do one after there because it's a bunch of races and a bunch of different like weekends. So stay tuned for that. Once again, join the Discord, links in the description. And last but not least, make sure to vote in the next poll, which will be in the comment section down below. I want to get as many of you guys going on this because it's fun to do these polls. And I'll definitely go up. I'll definitely put like numbers of how many points they've gained, how many like spots they've lost as the season goes on. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.